Moody says that if the Trump tariffs remain in place, we will definitely plunge into a recession, which will ultimately cost 3.5 million Americans their jobs. So, Ambassador Greer, if Trump's tariffs push 3.5 million people out of work, will the Trump administration reverse course and lift those tariffs?
Senator, the Wall Street analysts are wrong. They never want to have any kind of change to the status quo.
Right,
but that's who you're quoting to me,
I'm giving
Senator.
you a number. If the number is 3.5 million, if it never comes to pass, you don't have to worry about your answer. But if 3.5 million people lose their jobs because of these tariffs, is the Trump administration prepared to lift them?
Elizabeth Warren cornered Trump's trade chief with one simple question. How many jobs lost is too many? What he wouldn't say tells you everything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Donald Trump is single-handedly driving this economy off a cliff with no evidence to back him up. He's claimed emergency authorities to slap new tariffs on nearly every product we import from nearly every country. But Congress has the power to reverse these tariffs, and we should do so immediately. Tariffs can be a tool to help build things in America, but Trump has slapped tariffs on, then off again with no rhyme or reason. And the uncertainty about the long-term rules makes companies far less likely to invest in manufacturing or jobs here in the United States. If Congress doesn't stand up to Trump, economists predict a recession before the end of the year. And Fed Chair Jerome Powell says we're in a real danger of, quote, both higher unemployment and higher inflation. Translation: Trump's tariffs will push millions of workers out of jobs and push prices up at the same time. So, Ambassador Greer, we've heard a lot of conflicting statements about whether these tariffs are here to stay, how many more rounds of on-off we're going to do. So let me ask the question from a different perspective. Ambassador Greer, we lost 700,000 jobs each month in the last recession. If 700,000 Americans lose their jobs, will the Trump administration suspend these tariffs?
Senator, I think the economists who are making these projections, who often are in favor of fully unfettered free trade, are the same ones who said in the first Trump term that putting tariffs
Greer, Ambassador Greer, let me just stop you there. I'm not asking about projections. I'm asking if the numbers show that 700,000 people have lost their jobs because of these new tariffs that Trump has slapped on, will the administration reverse course and lift those tariffs?
Senator, that's not going to happen. We've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs over the years, which is the number I'm most worried about, and we have to get those jobs back.
So I take that as a no. Let me try another one. Moody says that if the Trump tariffs remain in place, we will definitely plunge into a recession, which will ultimately cost 3.5 million Americans their jobs. So, Ambassador Greer, if Trump's tariffs push 3.5 million people out of work, will the Trump administration reverse course and lift those tariffs?
Senator, the Wall Street analysts are wrong. They never want to have any kind of change to the status quo.
Right or
but that's who you're quoting to me,
Senator.
Senator.
I'm giving you a number. If the number is 3.5 million, if it never comes to pass, you don't have to worry about your answer. But if 3.5 million people lose their jobs because of these tariffs, is the Trump administration prepared to lift them?
Right now, this minute, we're working on negotiations with countries who believe they can achieve reciprocity with us and get their trade deficit down. And that's the emergency we're focused on. There's not going to be a situation where years from now we've lost millions of jobs.
Let me try one more time. If Trump tariffs push workers out of their jobs and raise prices, as Fed Chair Powell has predicted, will you reverse course then?
I think also with respect to Chairman Powell, who I don't know personally, but I know the president makes decisions on trade, and he rarely takes advice from Chairman Powell on this. We found in Trump 1 that you could put tariffs on China and you could make it work and have lower lower unemployment, lower inflation, and increase real median household income over time as we reshore. And that's what we have to do, Senator.
What I'm hearing you say is that no one can hear a rhyme or reason to why the tariffs are off again, on again, off again, on again. But what you're telling us is the fact that hundreds of thousands, even millions of people could lose their jobs and that prices could go up will not be a factor for you or for Donald Trump for rolling those tariffs back. Look, if Republicans are serious about protecting American jobs and fighting inflation, then they can join Democrats right now to pass a resolution to fix Trump's restless tariffs. This economy is teetering on the edge of collapse. We have the power right here in the Senate and over in the House of Representatives to take this authority away from Donald Trump. We can get this voted on. Senator Wyden and I have already are about to introduce the bill to do that. And if Republicans are serious about not playing the red light, green light with tariffs, but instead about protecting our economy, our families, our jobs, and keeping prices low, then Republicans should join us on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What you just witnessed was not a disagreement about trade theory. It was a live demonstration of how economic power is being exercised without accountability and how real-world harm is being treated as an acceptable cost. Elizabeth Warren didn't come into this hearing with ideology. She came with numbers, thresholds, and consequences. And that's what made the exchange so revealing. Donald Trump has invoked emergency authority to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly everything Americans import from nearly every country. That's not how tariffs are normally used. Historically, tariffs are targeted tools designed to protect specific industries, respond to unfair practices, or build domestic capacity over time. What Warren described instead is a whiplash strategy. Tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs back on again, with no consistent rules and no long-term signal to businesses. And that uncertainty matters more than most people realize. Companies don't build factories based on vibes. They invest when rules are stable. When trade policy changes week to week, businesses freeze. They delay hiring. They cancel expansion. They protect cash instead of creating jobs. That's how uncertainty becomes unemployment. So Warren did something very intentional. She stopped debating motives and asked about limits. She asked, if 700,000 Americans lose their jobs, the number lost every month during the last recession, would the administration lift the tariffs? The trade representative didn't say yes. He didn't say maybe. He didn't even say we'd review the data. He said that wouldn't happen. That answer matters because it tells us job losses are not a red line. They are collateral damage. Warren then raised the stakes. She cited Moody's analysis, warning that if these tariffs stay in place, the economy would plunge into a recession costing 3.5 million jobs. Again, she didn't ask whether the forecast was right. She asked whether there is any number, any level of harm at which the administration would reverse course. And again, there was no answer. Instead, what you heard was deflection, blaming economists, blaming Wall Street, changing the subject to past trade losses, talking around the question instead of answering it. But here's the key lesson for viewers. When an official refuses to define a failure point, it means failure has been priced in. That's not strategy, that's stubbornness. Warren also connected the dots between tariffs and inflation, something many Americans are already feeling. Fed Chair Jerome Powell warned that these policies risk pushing unemployment up and prices up at the same time, the worst possible combination for working families. Higher costs at the store, fewer jobs at work, less security at home. And when Warren asked whether rising prices and job losses would matter to the president's decision-making, the answer was effectively no. That is the core of the chaos here. This administration is treating tariffs not as an economic instrument, but as a political one, something to flip on and off to signal toughness, regardless of whether families can afford groceries or workers can keep their jobs. Warren made another crucial point that often gets overlooked. Congress, not the president, has the constitutional authority over tariffs. That power was temporarily delegated, not surrendered, and it can be taken back. That's why she ended not with outrage, but with a solution. She made clear that Congress has the votes, the authority, and the responsibility to stop this economic roulette. A resolution is being introduced to rein in Trump's tariff authority and restore predictability to the economy. Republicans don't have to agree with Democrats on everything, but if they claim to care about jobs, inflation, and stability, this is the moment to prove it. Because this isn't abstract, this isn't academic, this is about whether millions of Americans become test subjects in an economic experiment with no off switch. Elizabeth Warren forced the administration to admit something they didn't want to say out loud. There is no plan for when this goes wrong. And when there's no plan for failure, working people are the ones who pay first. If you found this breakdown helpful, if you want more context, not just clips, subscribe, share this with someone who thinks tariffs only affect other countries, and stay engaged. Because economic chaos doesn't announce itself, it creeps in quietly until families are the ones left picking up the pieces.